Welcome to segment 3 of Citizens Forum. Our guest in this segment is Will Smith. We're going to start by talking about money, and then we're going to move on to something more interesting. So, Will, money.
Well, I just, watching the show and of course directing the show, I hear all these guests, and there's been some kind of a case in the Supreme Court about the Bank of Canada not issuing money for the past 30 years or something. And I'm just surprised that, I just want to mention that I'm surprised that nobody has brought that up on the show, because when I was growing up and I would visit Ontario, the Canadian dollar was over parity. It was worth more. We'd get 6 cents.
Now, when you say visit Ontario, you're coming up from the States.
Yeah, I was coming up from the United States, and you know, the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar. And then evidently the country got talked into letting international bankers run the economy, and they said, well, you know, we need to stabilize your exchange rate so it doesn't fluctuate too much. And so I guess, I don't really know because I wasn't around, but everybody said yes, in the government anyway, and as a result...
Actually, they just never told us, they just did it.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember at the time living in Costa Rica, there were a lot of Canadians that lived there, and they were complaining bitterly because the Canadian dollar was worth 60 or 70 cents. And then the other thing is that all the money that's been issued since that time, I guess the interest that the Canadian people have been paying on that is over $1 trillion. So to have somebody tell you, you know, this would be really good for your foreign exchange if it would stabilize your foreign exchange if you just let us run your currency instead of letting your government do that. And then here we are 30-some years later, and the truth of the matter is the Canadians have been taken for over $1 trillion, and that money probably could have been spent on something different. And people who were living in a different place would have arguably been better off because their dollar would have been worth more. So I don't know, I would think, I don't know, I would think somebody would be interested in talking about that and maybe changing something. But that's...
I mean, I don't even know what's going on, and I'm interested in the topic. But yes, a case was or has or is being brought before the Supreme Court of Canada. I don't know exactly what, but it's about the Bank of Canada, and the media will not say one word about it. It's like, what a blackout. How corrupt is the Canadian?
So I think we should have somebody,
we
should have somebody on here to talk about that.
That's a great idea.
And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up was I saw Titanic, the movie Titanic, which was made, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, and I never saw it. And it's a long movie. I think it's 3 hours long, so I wasn't exactly, I didn't have wasn't excited about going to see it. But anyway, I finally saw it, and I thought it was a really fitting allegory or picture of what we're going through now, because the ships, the bulkheads have been breached. I mean, whether you look at the financial system that was detonated in 2008, or you look at the food chain crashes that are going on, or you look at the climate change, or you look at the political systems, I mean, you gotta be real and say the chances are 100% that one of these systems is going to fail, and probably during my lifetime. So these are things that are happening right now, and yet you see people running around worried about stuff that's just not important. So I think Titanic is a great movie to see if you kind of want to understand how people get into this mode of being in total denial about what's going on and don't want to look at it. So I'd recommend that movie as a picture of our lives right now. What do you think about that?
Well, unfortunately, I think you're probably right. Yeah, it does seem a bit like the Titanic. I would say that the reason a lot of people aren't more actively interested in it is because there's this huge cover-up going on. It's never mentioned. I mean,
yeah,
you know, all of these things. I mean,
well, I think the world has to make sense. I mean, I mentioned that I think that's the way I closed my last interview, is the world has to make sense. And so, you know, I just think everybody can look at the world around them right now and say, how does the world make sense to me? And it may be, the world may make sense to you because you are a Christian fundamentalist and you think that we're in the end times and it's all going to get destroyed. Or you might think that you know, we're going to have a breakthrough of science and our technology is going to solve all these myriad problems. Or you may think, I don't know, I think we're just getting pushed into a corner. I think this is some kind of a pinch point in human evolution, and we need to figure out who we are and just stop coming to the planet and pretending it's Disneyland, and we have to actually take some responsibility for what we do as humans. But anyway, I would just sort of suggest to everybody that they can look at what's going on and try to figure out, how does the world make sense to me? Because if it doesn't make sense, then you're really in trouble, because you can't process the world anymore, and it's frightening. Yeah. And if you can't run a democracy if everybody's frozen in their chairs. Everybody has to be okay and feel like they have some kind of power over the change. And I think we're just way beyond that point, but it still has to make sense.
Yeah, to me, you know, I feel kind of lucky, because to me the world does make sense. And part of that is because I don't believe what the official story.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I'm not concerned that if I don't get vaccinated, the world is going to end. I'm not concerned that I have to watch my cholesterol. I'm not concerned that, with the fear that they send down to us in their television and their movies. I mean, they just send fear, and because I stopped watching their stuff a long time ago, at least, I've managed to avoid some of those things. I think if I believed the official story, I would not know what to do.
So you're saying that the world does make sense to you, and you may not be okay with it, but...
Yeah, I'm very unhappy with the directions we're going in, but I kind of understand them. Like so many others, I fight to make this a better society. It doesn't seem to be happening. We seem to be, because I just accept there are very powerful forces, evil forces working against us. But I think we can do better. That's the main thing. I think we can do better.
I agree with you. I think we can do better, and the only difference is, I guess what I'm looking at is, it's just so ridiculously bad. I think that we're all being forced to look in the mirror. And so even though, like, the president of Monsanto thinks he's green and he's doing a great job of saving the planet because he's providing this fantastic technology, and I think that all of us have these little things that we can't see about ourselves. So the main task right now is, the world is in such a shape that we have to look at them in the mirror and say, we got here somehow. Now, what was my part in that, and how can I see the world differently so that I don't need to destroy it in order to live here?
And that's also why we need more media and more democracy, because if we had more media and more democracy, Monsanto could not do to us what they are doing. The problem is we have a corporate dictatorship. Yeah,
but you see what I see, there's a difference there, because I feel like when you talk about these guys, I feel like they're in a boardroom somewhere plotting our death and destruction. So I'm being silly, and I just think that everybody's trying to do something good, even the guy, and the only trouble is really the motivation, because if the overriding motivation is money, then it warps the way we see things, and it warps our decisions. And so I think that that's a basic, but saying, well, corporations are bad, well, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Their corporate charter says they're supposed to make money. And so he's saying, I'm going to save the world. I'm making these wonderful new vegetables that we can use toxic waste on to produce, and all the stuff left over from when we make wars, which are absolutely necessary, because that's just the way this place works. I mean, I'm just making this silly stream of consciousness thing up, but that's really what the guy believes, obviously, if you read the introduction in his annual report. And so that's just lying, though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The guys on the Titanic, everybody was lying to themselves. So how do we get to where, and that's what I like about this show, is that we seem to have people who are determined that, hey, wait a minute, look at this. There's something going on here that everybody should know about. So I like that part. I bet we're out of time, aren't we?
We're out of time.
Okay. Thank you for having me on, and appreciate it.
Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.